Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I'm your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate you tuning in yet for another week. I got my boy Jordanpierree here, man, journalist, activist, speaker, CEO, business owner, and a plethora of other things, man. How you doing, bro?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be here. I seen the work that you was doing, so
yes, sir.
It's great to be a guest on this platform. I love the work that you're doing, so I applaud you on that.
Appreciate you.
And I know we're gonna have a great conversation. So it's a pleasure to be here. You got Jordan, the voice.
Yes,
sir. If you want
to
find me anywhere on Instagram, it's Jordanpierree, and let's get to it.
Let's get it, man. Something that you talk about a lot is the importance of how our childhood shapes us. Mm-hmm. Bring us back to like some of those early memories you have that really shaped who you into the person that you are today.
Yeah, so I believe childhood is important. Something we don't often talk about. Mm-hmm. They say your childhood experiences mold you into the adult you become. And for me, I'll say growing up, I'm from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, and growing up, I seen a lot. I feel like I had a plethora of exposure to different things. Mm-hmm. One was like, I seen a lot of people die early on in my neighborhood. So we was exposed to violence a little bit early on. The first person I can remember was like my cousin Unique. And I remember that day we was having a block party, and where I'm from, the block I live in don't get along with the street across from us. So he was like, "Nah, I don't want to go to a block party. I just want to go somewhere so I don't get into no trouble." And he wound up being killed that day by law enforcement. Wow. You feel me? So that's when I was younger, and being that you asked this question, I'm gonna speak to it. So it was growing up in an environment that then led to me creating my brand voice, in which I want to turn to a foundation. Is because coming from that environment, what I felt as if I noticed that the news only came to my neighborhood after one of us died. So I felt like our story deserved to be told. That a eulogy shouldn't be the only time our voices was heard, and that a funeral shouldn't be the only time my community started to come together. So what I know is that's when Save Your Streets, we have all these protests, all these marches, but do after someone passed away. And it's like, how do we no longer become a reactionary community? How do we then become proactive? How do we build this ecosystem where we feel love, we feel nurtured, and our children know that they got people to lean on? So that's what I want to build through my foundation, is the sense of community once again. So that was a part of my childhood. Other ones that I had a lot of mentors. I gained exposure to being part of the foundation from the Derek Jeter Foundation. That's how I got exposed to Syracuse University. They took me to college tours. This the first organization that took me out of the state. That's when I went my first time to New Orleans. So it was a mixed exposure. I had that, and not always born in church. I know we spoke about this several times. Yeah. I am a pastor child now, but I always was known as a pastor kid. I always knew how to effectively articulate my thoughts. But I also was born in that community, and they always looked out for me, right? So we'll speak more to it, but that's somewhat of my childhood, is that mixed exposure. And just for me, seeing, because my older brother was in the streets, right? Seeing his lifestyle and the stress that it caused my mother, it made me I wasn't inclined to go in that route. I was like, yeah, I don't really see that attractive. That's what I was going to ask, yeah. That's what made me want to go to the school route and start pursuing academics, because I seen the impact the lifestyle my brother was living had on my mom. You feel me? It was time periods where you couldn't call the house phone after 2-3 in the morning. You couldn't do that, because at that time, whenever the phone ring at a certain time of night, we already attached it to something bad happened. So it's times we'd be asleep. If the phone started ringing at 2-3 a.m., we like, who died? Who got shot? What happened? Automatically, that's our response. And that's when you start understanding, like, your environment, your experiences condition you, and you start having certain response to certain signs and sounds. And then that molded me to the individual I am today. And I just want to make sure I create a community where youth understand that it's much more than just one way for us to make it out. I'm not an entertainer. I don't rap, and that's the thing that's usually pushed to us, and that's narratives portrayed through media. And I want to show that you could be vocal. You can be educated and articulate your experiences, and find a way to create your own platform. So that's
beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know you mentioned that you had a stepfather growing up. Your biological father was kind of talk on that, because I think a lot of kids struggle with that young, man, like especially when you have somebody from the outside come in. Right.
So I'm gonna first start by giving big applause to all my step parents, right? All those parents that took the responsibility of raising somebody else's child, because at first it's hard to raise your own. So to take on that responsibility of raising someone else's is something that's worthy of applause, and that's honorable. So my father, he left my life when I was like 3 years old. And it's funny, I was crying earlier today. You asked me, was I meditating? But I had that music on, but I was writing a letter, because I'm going to leave and go back to the city. But I was writing a letter to my girl. But when I was writing a letter, it made me think of that situation where when I was 3, right, I remember I woke up in the morning and my father was no longer there. I remember seeing my mom crying, and she was reading a letter. So the way he departed out our life was he wrote a letter while we were asleep. He left the letter on the bed, and then he left. He went to Florida. So when my mom woke up, she had a letter, and I guess he was explaining why he was leaving or whatever. And so about childhood, I believe there's certain things that we all experience as children, and it was during an age where we couldn't put language to what we were seeing or what we was experiencing. So as a child, we seen it, but we didn't fully understand it. And if we did understand it, we couldn't put language to it. And then as we got older, we started to be able to be equipped with the language, the experience, and the knowledge to then articulate what I saw when I was a child, but didn't understand at that age. Right? So I didn't understand what that was. But I got to tell you now that, it was a letter. It was my father explaining that he left, and my mom was crying.
Wow.
You feel me? So that's how he left. And then around the age of 5 was when my stepfather came into my life. And he played I wouldn't be the young man I am today without him. Right? So he is a veteran. He instilled discipline. I think a big part in certain households when you have two parents, like your mom is more the nurturer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She teach you how to be welcoming, how to make sure everybody always feel love and know that this daughter's house is always open if you need help. Right?
Yeah.
But then the father is more like the disciplinary, right? He's showing me the discipline. He's like, prior planning prevents poor performance. So I went to a uniform school, a school that we wear a uniform in. We have to iron my uniform the night before. He just showed me the discipline, knowing when to wake up, knowing that there will be times where I'm not going to be there to tell you what you need to be doing, but you need to have some structure. And, we working at this foundation. I told the kids the other day was this idea that dare to be different. He always told me that growing up. He's like, just because it's a trend don't mean it's meant to be followed. So embedding them small things. And then I played ball growing up. He always tell me it's bigger than basketball. Yeah. Right. So life is bigger than just what's in our realm, and how do we always stay community orientated. So he just spoke to me about a lot of things, and it's things that they tell you as a child. I'm gonna say this. We have a saying that says, "Don't cast pearls among swine." Right. What they mean is like, don't be giving knowledge to people that is not gonna be receptive of it, or it defeats the purpose. But what I'm saying, and what he did for me, was that he did cast pearls among swine, because he told me information at a time where he knew I probably wouldn't understand it fully, but he understood that one day I will. Wow. And I prefer for a parent to teach their child something early on, so that when we come into a situation, we refer back to what we was taught. But if I never was taught it, now I'm mad, like, you never taught me that. But if I get into a situation, sometimes I find myself like, nah, I see what my mom meant. Oh, damn, I wish I'd have listened to my step-pops. Right? But that's only because they cast those pearls amongst swine. Well, gave me information at an age where I didn't understand it, but they knew that there would come a time where I did. So that's what he did for me, and that's a big part. One thing I'm gonna say is, maybe we gotta learn how to say like we love each other. Yeah. Come on. Even as I'm thinking about it now, me and him never said like I love you. I'm gonna try it though. It will break that wall of like vulnerability, because we never said that. Like even on the phone, I'm gonna try it prior today. And I'm like, yeah, I love you.
Come on, man. Come on.
Being able to say it, we show signs, and we give different nonverbal communication of showing I love you. In the hood, we might say we be like I we be like safety. When we say safety, that's like I love you, or like be safe. But instead of saying I love you, we say safety. So as men, we have different language that we use rather than just saying I love you. Right. I don't know what it is, because we haven't had a lot of men in our life tell us I love you. So when we want to say I love you, we use a different language to communicate that same feeling, but without saying that word. So I'm gonna try it today though. But that's what he taught me. It was a lot about the discipline. And my mom always taught me how to be nurturing.
Absolutely. And where do you think that comes from? Like that lack of like vulnerability, especially amongst, the African community. Why do you think that's something that lacks?
Yeah, I say, and I was speaking about this before, I feel as if the lack of vulnerability comes from a place where a lot of us can't afford to open up that Pandora box. Like we may feel certain emotions, but coming from a certain environment, one, we have to shield our emotion because we trying to survive, and some people may find, we trying to say we need to find strength and vulnerability. A lot of us haven't been taught that. So a lot of us been taught to see weakness and vulnerability, crying and all that. Even though you may feel it, sometimes you're going to see us bottled up. Or we have a different way to which we channel that energy and how we release it, right? Most times it's like fighting or cursing and violence. So if it's not that, most times we silent. So you see a lot of men become silent when we all feeling no way. And I think people need to be more inclined to understand how men react to certain situations. We not as verbal sometimes because we wasn't taught that, And what I'm saying is like a lot of us can't afford to open that Pandora box, because once you get into an emotional state, we got a lot of other stuff that's dependent on us, right? So if you a man and you say you got children, you got a family, you got a girlfriend, a lot of times you can't afford to go below that 5, because a lot of things is dependent on you. So even though I may feel away, it's like I got to bottle up that emotion because I can't allow anything else to fall. You know, it's like I feel that way, but I got other things to do. And the moment I start to try to I want to unfold or disentangle those forms of emotion, it hinders other things, right? So like when you start getting into your emotions and it's like, yo, we talk about meditating. When you sit down and start having to deal with things that we try not to confront, it's time. Prime example, we could be at work, right? And you may have something that you need to get done, but you know there's other things going on personally that you feel, and you need to address those emotional to get that task done.
Wow.
And a lot of times we trying to get a task done without addressing the emotion. And a lot of us know that in order to get this task done, sometimes we need to negate an emotion. And when you're doing that, it hurts. But as men, that's how we talk. It's like, yo, I feel a way, but if I was to address this feeling, I'm not going to be able to also show up at work right now. But I need to show up at work, so I got to negate this emotion. You feel me? So that's what I feel in my neighborhood, and I can see it. I talked to some of my brother friends. He just lost his little brother. His name Malcolm lost his little brother, man. And he was talking to me, and I could see that he want to cry. You feel me? And even when we have podcasts, or even the questions you ask, you can see it in somebody's eyes when you tapping in with their soul.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? So when I was talking to him, I could tell that it's something in him that he got to get out. But just as men, we taught to like try to hold it, because there's a lot of people also watching us. You know, we got to be these soldiers. But I believe, and last thing I'm gonna say, and I want you to ask the next question. But what I also blame it on is the narrative that's been told, right, about our leaders. Even me, I have a hard time. We talk about relationships. I'm like, could you be a leader and in a relationship? Could you be in love and rageful, right? Like, could I be a leader? Because a big part of how I show up, how I speak, is based on a certain type of rage and energy. Yeah. But when you in love, that negates that sometimes. You can't be and in love. It's boom boom. Feel me? Right. But what I'm saying is, when I say a single narrative story, we haven't been shown Malcolm X. Like, we never showed his love life. He had a wife. Why we don't ever show that? How was he as a family man? But we only show that when he's showing up as a soldier, right? Martin Luther King, we never really talked too much about what was his home life. All our warriors, Leonidas, Sparta, 300, we see them as, you know, we masculine. But we never seen a household appearance, never seen them in love. We never seen how they managed to be a leader, but also to be a leader in a household, to lead with a woman by your side. I don't think we get a lot of those narratives. So that's a hard part for many people that's maybe activists, community, activationists, whatever you want to call it, in regards to like being able to see the other lenses to which our leaders live through. We only get that masculine energy. So as men, we haven't been shown it. We never seen none of our leaders lead and be in love. Yeah. So most times we feel like you can't be in love and lead, or you feel like you gotta have, if you have rage and you in love, it don't work. So a lot of times we will convince ourselves that I can't have a relationship and do this, or I can't be doing this and that, because we haven't seen it. So I think that's a big part for me. I haven't seen it, so that's what challenged me here. Do you remember like a certain period in your life where this passion for like activism and people and change really came about? Like, was there a certain moment that just like made you really start to give this more energy? I say the first moment I could say that like I took a platform to speak. First, let's say I think God give us all a gift, right? I think God plants something inside of all of us. And you know, as I'm learning, I see like Bob Marley. I look at Rastafari. Yep. They if you watch the movie like One Love, in a movie he says he called Bob Marley when he was younger a young lion, right? So would symbolize that you gonna be the king of the jungle, but you got to mature into that stage. So I'm saying that to say that I think the first glimpse into when I knew I had the ability to speak, it was in Eagle Academy, where I went to all boys school, and it was one day where we had to memorize our pledge. It was a pledge that we have, and it was like whoever come in the next day and memorize it and say it, let's see who could do it. It's like a challenge. Yeah, I'm in 6th grade. Excuse me. I come in. And they like, who memorized the poem? Nobody raised their hand. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I get up there and I say the pledge. Like, an Eagle scholar about his humble confidence, all that he attempts. Like, I memorized it. I went up there and I said it. Right. And I remember everybody's like, oh, this young man did it. Oh, all right. So I took the initiative to do. And when I seen the impact of when you take the initiative and you excel, you get another opportunity. Then you excel at that again, you get another opportunity. And it's like, that's how it starts. But it all starts from you taking that initiative. So I say that's the first thing I got memorized. But I believe that different people may have seen it in me. But when I recognize it, I remember that day vividly. When I spoke that day, that's what led to me having various opportunities that started then. But I also was the president of my school in elementary in 4th and 5th grade.
Wow.
So that's even before 6th grade. Like,
Right.
I spoke. Where can I just got to give it to God. But also, a lot of our leaders did come from church. We don't really speak about that. That most leaders, whether even if it's the Nation of Islam, it's still some type of religious foundation. That most of our leaders that led any movements had some had a firm foundation in a belief system. So I think that played a part in it as well. But I believe God gave me a gift. At a certain age, other people noticed it, but it became more like visible to me in certain moments. But I think it came through like the applause. And people like, yo, nah, you did great.
Yeah.
And then I think if people keep applauding you on something that you you think that is normal,
Yeah.
but everybody else like, yo, you doing good.
Yeah.
That might be the gift.
Right.
That
That's
might
a fact.
be it. So you got to start paying attention to that. So.
That's real.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that your stepdad was a pastor.
My stepfather,
so faith has played a big part in your life all the way up until this point.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit on that and how important you think faith is for your foundation and just becoming like the best version of yourself.
Yeah. I believe faith play a big role. We say that man will always let you down, right? But to have a belief in something that's greater than man, that never let you down. So you never feel like you're alone. A part that I could speak to, right? Everybody know me for the graduation speech that went viral, but I never really told the story behind it.
Yeah, talk about
I believe that God put you in certain situations where He gonna strip you of your ability to do because you have to rely on Him. And when you are able to excel, you know that it was only one way for you to get through, and that was through reliance on Him and His assistance. So sometimes He got to put you in a position to make it evident of who in control, right? So I'm saying to say, when I wrote that speech, I wrote it 2 years prior. I got the opportunity to speak. And the day before, I was rehearsing with my girlfriend, Chelsea. She was my girl at the time. I was rehearsing in a library. Boom, boom. I'm rehearsing. That night, we go out to a party. That's Ice Spice that dropped the song. I'm outside partying, having fun. Beer jugs, all these things, right? And I woke up that next morning, I had lost my voice. Knowing I had to speak that same morning. I lost my voice, and I had to speak that morning to deliver the keynote speech at 12. And it's like 8 a.m., and I noticed I lost my voice. And when I lost my voice, I'm like, damn, I got to get my voice back. But that morning they had us do a meet and greet with the other keynote, who is the president of Lionsgate.
Okay.
Her name is Erin Westerman, right? And we were sitting there with her, and everybody know me to be the student that would ask the first question. Mm-hmm. So as we speaking and we meeting her, it's a time where Q&A comes up. Everybody looking at me to ask. Right. But I'm the only one that don't have my voice. So I don't have my voice. I'm like, every time I try to speak, I would say like, and then my voice would crack. Right. I'm like, now I'm getting nervous. So I go to my phone, man. I'm looking up like, yo, how do you get your voice back in 3 hours? Because I need my voice to deliver this keynote. Right. Boom. And the day before, I'm watching this video by R.A. Vernon. T.D. Jakes. And what he said was like, he said that God will put you in certain positions where you know the only way to excel in this assignment is through Him, right? So I didn't have my voice. Now let's get up to the keynote. I'm sitting on the stage. I know I don't have my voice. When I looked it up, it said drink tea. I started drinking tea, and it says basically be silent. So I'm just silent. I get on this stage. People I looked like I was uncomfortable. But I wasn't uncomfortable. I was actually praying. You feel me? Like I was saying it like, yo, God. I asked him, I said, if you could just give me my voice for this keynote, yo, I'd be thankful for that. Like, just let me just be able to speak. Right. So when I get up there to speak, I say, good morning. I noticed that I couldn't speak any higher or lower than my standard voice. And why that makes sense, because the night before when I was rehearsing with Chelsea, when I first speak, most times once I get passionate, my tone changes. And she was like, Jordan, I don't want you to speak that loud. I want you to speak how you normally do, because you often captivate an audience that way.
Yeah, come on.
And if you speak too loud, they're going to focus more on your tonality than the message. So then when I went to speak that day, and I said good morning, the only tonality I could speak at was the tone that Chelsea said, which is my normal voice.
Wow.
Right? So I didn't have my voice leading up to the speech. I had my voice only for that speech. And right after, you ask any of my friends, I lost my voice again. So he gave me the ability to speak for that moment. And after, I lost my voice for the rest of the day. You feel me? So my spiritual foundation is big. Because
that's deep.
God gonna get you to do certain things that nobody else could. You feel me? And you're gonna have to praise, and you gotta have conversation. I think we make it seem like you gotta be so religious, babe. Sometimes you gotta have a conversation like, yo, I need assistance. You feel me? And then language is important. Like, equip me with the mindset I need to conquer whatever battles you about to present, or help me to become that person you need me to be to fulfill your mission. Like, you gotta ask for some guidance, some structure. So that's how it's been for me, and I've seen it. So since I was younger up to now, religion has played a big role. Going to church. I remember we used to always go to church on New Year's whenever the board dropped. We knew that we wasn't going to celebrate Halloween. We'd be in church. And I feel like a big part of our generation that we need to go back into, having a religious foundation, to going back to church, even though many things in church is contrary to what we're trying to normalize in society. That's big. And I would say that because, that's what we deviate. We deviate from our purpose. And I believe that once you become religiously inclined, it's a lot of things you'll have to stop doing. I think that's the reason why we may be not going to church, is because when you start understanding the word, it's going to come at the expense of your comfort. A lot of things that you're doing now, when you start learning, it's like, I might have to stop that. You know what I mean? They say that if you allow the desires of the flesh, it says the desires of the flesh is set to be against the desires of the spirit, to keep you from doing what it is that you want to do. And what I'm saying is that a lot of times we have a desire of the flesh. How we see women. A lot of times we have a desire of the flesh that our spirit outgrew, but we still allowing our lust and our flesh to guide us, right? When you start learning the word, you got to start shifting. So I think a big part of learning the word is being able to deal with discomfort and understand that there's going to be some things that as you learn, you're going to outgrow, and you're going to have to be more inclined to letting your spirit guide you rather than just your flesh. And I think that's beautiful. A big discomfort.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you were talking about that off camera, just the importance of, like, if you want to grow and be the best version of you got to let go of ease and comfort. Yeah. Speak on that too.
Yeah, like, that's a big one. Yeah. So, I was reading a book. We talk about Think and Grow Rich, right?
The Black Choice.
Then I read the Black Choice, right? So it's Think and Grow Rich, the Black Choice, like Napoleon Hill. And I was reading that, and in a book, he referenced somebody that was a great warrior. I want to say Napoleon, right? I want to say that, but they went to battle, right? And what he did was he told his army, he was like, look, when we get here, it's no form of retreat, right? And rather than just him saying it, he showed them. So what he did was he burnt the ships after everybody got off. And what he was symbolized, like, either we going to win or we going to die trying, but we don't have the option to retreat, right? And I think they say that in the Bible, it's in Luke, I can't quote the verse exactly, but it says some parts of you going to have to die, right, in order for you to grow.
Wow.
And I think understand that in life, you got to know that you can't be who you are and become who you aspire to become at the same time. Something got to leave, right? I can't be who I am and become who I want to be at the same time. So something got to give, right? And that's what it is. So I believe what has helped me in life, even when I'm nervous, is understanding I don't have the ability to retreat, right? I don't have that option no more. So once I understood and I put myself in that mindset that by any means necessary, I got to get it done because I cannot stay the same. I cannot retreat to who I once was, because a lot of part of this spiritual warfare is that the devil wants you to retreat back to who you once was. That's the easiest thing to do. They say you revert back to habit. So in life, obstacles is meant to get you to revert back to what you're comfortable in. But like I said, it's two words that I say we don't use no more. It's comfortable and easy. Because nothing that we aspire to become is going to be easy or allow us to stay in our comfort zone as we pursue it. So those two things. And just once you put yourself in the mindset that I don't got that option to retreat, then you got to get it done.
Boy, you hitting, bro. Yeah. And I think also just going back to like the whole faith, like I've realized that when you make that commitment that I'm going to live this life with God, I'm going to go down that path, you got to be ready for some discomfort, some obstacles, some adversity.
Right,
I think a lot of people think, let go, let God, and it become easy.
Yeah, at all.
That's not it.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? You trying to pursue your purpose and be all of who you were made to be. That is not an easy process.
At all. And I'm going to just say this, I say like walking in your calling, often God is going to call you to do things that is not that you want to do, right? Most times it's things that if I had the options, a lot of things I wouldn't. The place I would not want to speak because I'm nervous. I don't now feel like I'm ready. I have opportunity to speak September 10th for a foundation. This is the most I ever got paid to go speak. And I want to do a presentational style, similar like how I facilitate in the morning. That's my first time ever facilitating was for this boot camp. Many don't know that. And I want to go into that space and use what I learned. But this would be my first time doing it, right? And often when God is calling you, and I heard you say, it's like you got to allow him to direct. I think a lot of times, and when you learn that you're moving in calling, you also learn that you don't have as much agency as you think.
Right.
You start to know that you're not the one controlling this show. Because it's so much that happened in regards to this speech, I wish I could say, right? But I'm going to tell you the story. One of them, I spoke, so I wrote the speech, right? And I was like, I was nervous because I know like what I'm about to say is revolutionary and you could get in trouble for some of these things. And I thought like maybe you get the platform where they wouldn't allow me to say it.
Yeah.
And I originally had wrote that speech with the intent to speak at Black graduation, right? Because I was like, I have a message to say to my people. And if anything, I could say it's amongst mine.
Facts.
Right? But I did not get chosen to speak at the black graduation. I was mad. Right? Well, I said the speech, I was at Newhouse. And Newhouse is a predominantly white school. And they had chosen me to speak at their convocation, but the black graduation didn't choose me, the committee. And I felt the way. I'm like, how my own people don't pick me, but the white people have allowed me to speak. So now I'm mad.
Yeah.
So I called a few friends, right? And this is going to speak to a lot of things about God. So I called a few friends, and I'm like, the way I worded the question at the time, and I know it's spiritual now, I said, when do you know when God is putting you in a position to roar from when he's shifting you? Right? And I called my homegirl Ari. It's like, yo, Ari, how you know when God is shifting you or when he's putting you in a position to roar? And what I mean by that, shifting you, meaning that there's times where God is shifting you, meaning he needs to put you in a different space. He's repositioning you. There's other times when you put you in a position where you need to roar. And like a lion, right? I'm saying that this time you gotta make your presence known. We keep saying, the lion don't have to say he's the king of the jungle, but that's false.
Yeah.
Why is it false? Because we know a lion roars, but we never understood the context to what makes him roar. But this time we have to restabilize his environment.
Yeah.
He roared, and everybody like, okay,
yeah,
that's the king of the jungle.
That's
so I didn't know whether God was repositioning me or putting me in a position to roar. Right. So when I was asking, she said, Jordan, when you put forth all your greatest effort and the outcome is still out of your control. She says nothing else that you could have did to be chosen to speak at black graduation. There's nothing else we could ask you to do.
Right.
So that means he's shifting you. I fast forward, right? I spoke to various people. I spoke to Ryan at work here. I was like, yo, Ryan, I'm like, I didn't get chosen to speak at black graduation. I feel away. I don't know if I should go make myself speak because I could do that.
Right.
Or if God shifted me.
Right.
He like, Jordan, this ain't gonna be your first time speaking or your last time. Let somebody else get the opportunity to do it. I hung up on him. I didn't want to hear that. What are you talking about? Right? I called my other man, he's a part of Alpha, Kyrie Matthews, right? And I spoke with him, and he was like, I told him the story. I asked him the question. He was like, give me more context. He was like, He said, well, I want you to know is that there's different ways to have an impact on a program besides being the face of it, right? I want you to learn this word called a force multiplier. And he was like, you can assist those that was chosen to speak with their speech, and that's your way to have presence without being present. And I was like, that was a good one, right? And I like that, and that helped me. I settled after that. I'm like, I'm an assister. So I started assisting those. He didn't know at the time the people that was chosen already was reaching out to me like, yo, Jordan, help me. At the time, I was mad though, because I'm like, even though I didn't get chosen, they know to come to me to ask for assistance, but yet the people that chose them didn't even pick me.
Right.
But I'm like, all right, bet. So let's be a force multiplier. I started assisting them. That had me killed, but then one of my mans came and he was like, Jordan, I heard you didn't get picked to speak at black graduation. How they didn't choose you? Now I'm mad all over again. Right? So I start taking a walk. I'm walking around Newhouse. I bump into my homegirl.
Right.
I bump into her and we spoke, right? I sat there, I asked her, I was like, well, I'm forgetting her name. I'm glitching. I want to make sure I say her name correctly. This is my Kai.
Okay.
My homegirl Kai. And I asked her, I said, Kai, how do you know when God is shifting you from when he's putting you in a position to rule? She said, I don't understand. Give me more context. I said, I've been doing all this work for the school. You know, I've been building community amongst the black students. And I wrote this speech and I want to speak at black graduation, but I wasn't chosen. Yet Newhouse has chosen me to speak. And I feel away. She said, yo, Jordan, you know you remind me of something. She said, you ever heard of the story of the prodigal sons? I was like, I heard of it before, but I was like, nah, I never heard of it. She said, so there was two sons. There was the eldest son and the younger brother, right? And there was a king. She said there was a time where the younger son had asked the father for his inheritance, which is a signal of disrespect because it's like, before you die, I want my inheritance now. I'm not even waiting for that time to come.
Right.
And the father king had gave the younger son his inheritance. And the younger son left. The older brother stayed with the king and attended to his needs. The younger son left, got his inheritance, was splurging. Word go around with Tom. He was like, your son is living amongst the swan, eating pig, eating pork. And at that time, that's like you living at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, he lost
right?
it all,
So the father's like, damn. The older brother hear about it too. The father said, all right. He goes around the kingdom and he alerts everybody. He tells them, he say, look, I want y'all to prepare a feast for my son when he arrives because I know my child, he will come back home. Right? So, boom, that happens. During time, you know, in the kingdoms, you could see from afar when someone's approaching.
Facts.
So he was walking one time, he see his son coming. He gave the alert. Let's start this feast. So the son, the gates open, the son walks in, and the feast starts. The older brother mad. He like, yo, dad, I stayed here and attended to all your needs, but yet you never threw a feast in honor of my presence and my loyalty to you. But yet my younger brother has disrespected you. He left and you throwing a feast for him. He said, my son has been dead. He's alive again. Your brother has been lost. He's been found again. That's worthy of a celebration.
Wow,
right?
Man. That's what the king said to his son.
To his son.
Wow.
Said to the older brother. And then Kyle looked at me and she said, Jordan, in many ways you remind me of the elder brother. She said, just because you have made a commitment and a loyalty to what God has told you to do in this school don't mean that what you envisioned outside of your prayers was in alignment with what he envisioned for you. Right? And she said, often we pray with an idea, like we praying because we want something to manifest out that prayer. And sometimes what we praying for is not in alignment with what God envisioned for us. Right? And when she said that to me, she was like, I believe God is just shifting you. So I don't want you to change your speech, because originally I was going to change that speech because that was for the black graduation.
Right.
Not for the white people. So I didn't change it. She said he's shifting me, and I kept the same speech and said that same speech just amongst a different demographic. So it was the shift. You feel me?
Right.
And that's how it all went down, and we seen the impact of it. But
crazy.
That's important to understand, like how God just played a role in my.
Hey, can you tell people what Newhouse is? Because I know that's part of.
So Newhouse is the #1 communication school in the country. Is in Syracuse University, and it's different schools within that university in itself. And Newhouse happens to be the School of Public Communication.
Okay, yeah. I just want to talk about it. But that, man, boy, that's deep. That's so good. That is so good. Because I swear to you, bro, one of the biggest things I see is like people praying for a specific thing, right? And you get so attached to this certain outcome of how it need to look.
Yeah.
And then when that don't happen, you feel like God let you down, or man, I'm doing something wrong and something. It's like you need to just be praying to let God bring in whatever's right for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not what you think is right for you. Right. And you said that earlier. That joint hit.
Yeah, that's important. You got to, because if it's not in alignment with what he got planned, it ain't gonna work out. You feel me? They say what they say. Right? You say as you playing, God laughs or something like that. Like
God laughs as you're playing. Fact. That's a fact.
Because if it's not in line with what he envisioned for you, it's not gonna happen. So we do pray with the intent for certain thing to manifest out that prayer. But if it's not in alignment with what he wants to bring to fruition for you, it ain't gonna work.
And I think it is important to have a vision, because the vision keeps you You know what I mean? Aligned. You know where you're going.
Right.
Talk on that.
Yeah. So for me, I always say write it down. You know, they say write it down, write it plain, and he'll make a way, right? But just allow the time to happen. Yeah. But whenever a vision comes to mind, I always write it down first. I think we in this social media generation, people want to type it, all this. I write it down. That's the first thing I do. Put myself in some space of solitude, write it down. But all it is like you got to pray through it. Because what I say is, and a mentor told me this, right? I'm like, exactly why I asked him. I asked him a question. He said, yo, Jordan, I want you to know that God never gives you the plan in full. Sometimes he give you it in pieces, right? And he says most times he may show you your beginning and your end, but that in between is what you got to pray for.
Come on.
He gonna order your steps, but you got to pray for each step to be guided. So when I'm saying write it down, it's good to have the vision. You don't have the end goal. I often know how I'm gonna start,
right?
But that in between usually is the hardest, because to get from here to here, it seems so short,
right? Yeah.
But it's a lot that go on in that in between. You feel me? And that's what you got to ask, is the guidance to order my steps. So it's great to have a vision. I know what I want to bring to fruition, but it's like I need the assistance in knowing what those steps are. And let's say like being here, working now. I was facilitating for the nonprofit, the Good Life Foundation in Syracuse. And like at first I didn't know why I was here, but I understand. My learning experience of how to facilitate will assist me now with delivering that keynote on the 10th.
Yep.
TD Jakes just said that, I watched it. He said in order for you to assess what it is that you're going through, you have to understand where is it that God's trying to take you, right? So in order for you to even make sense of it, you got to know that to get to where you envision to be, there's certain things you need to go through that's much more than just money and that's tangible in order to become the person to maintain that position.
Come on.
You feel me? A lot of us, I'm like, I thought I could be Steve Harvey. I swear to God. 10 years ago, I could do the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
I'm happier than I have it. Sometimes you got to pray God and thank him for the things he did not allow to happen during the time that we wanted it to happen.
Yep.
Because I wasn't put. It's so much you have to learn. Simple things like you thinking Wheel of Fortune. Sometimes you got to learn how to be in spaces with people that don't like you and not show it. That's a gift. You got to learn how to maneuver in spaces with people who have malintent and still succeed. You got to learn how to present and speak in front of the demographic and not allow the noise to distract you.
Come on.
This things that's outside of the Wheel of Fortune. You feel me? So you have a goal. You want to be the best basketball player. You got to learn discipline. Learn how to do things even when you don't feel compelled to do it.
Fact.
So it's little smaller things that we don't speak about that you got to learn in order to become that person, maintain a position. But we just so focused on the goal.
Yeah,
we
man.
fulfillment on accomplishing a goal, but you got to learn how to get some enjoyment in that journey. So like that's what I'm learning. Each step has been curating me, but in the moment you ain't appreciating. You like, why I'm here? I don't want to. I'm at a boot camp. I want to be speaking at BET.
Yeah.
But to speak at BET is certain things you got to learn. You got to learn this system, this game, and allow them steps to be ordered. So that's why I'm like you said, write down a vision. It's great to have a vision, but know that God never give you the vision in full. Sometimes he give it to you in pieces. And to make that mural, you need his assistance. You feel me?
What's his name, man? He's a Bahamian pastor. He's one of my favorite. R.I.P. to my guy because he passed away a couple years ago. Miles Monroe. Yeah, you would love him. He's amazing. He said that. He said God will give you the vision, but not show you the path to get there. Because, man, when I think about my life, bro, if he was like, yo, Saul, I got you. Like, you gonna get here. I'm like, bet. But this is everything you gotta go through to get here. I'd be like, I'm straight. I'll stay right here. I don't need to go through all that.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm all good. That. What you mean?
Be like, I forget about it. I'm all right.
I didn't know that was all part of the plan.
Right. You just want the goal.
Yeah.
So
and that's faith.
That's all the process. Yeah. The faith. That's important. You said moving by faith, not by sight.
Right.
Feel me? We want to move by what we see. And I'm gonna speak to that, and then I'll let you go on. But
you good.
For a lot of us, we gotta understand that we are meant to like be that reference. What I mean by that is that I think definitely in our generation we got social media and these tools that we try to seek confirmation of what it is that we want to do by seeing others do it. Right. So we looking at people, we trying to see like who is models, who's doing this, who's public speaking. Look at how they speaking in order for me to learn that it's possible. I seen Inky Johnson do it. I seen every time I know it's possible. But there's things that you're gonna look up that you're not gonna see somebody doing. And that's what you meant to be the reference of. If you continue to move in alignment with your vision, one day when somebody look up that, they gonna see you. Now it's like, oh, word. Because it don't exist right now, right? And they got different percentage. They say, 85% of the jobs that exist in 2023 don't exist right now. So it's things that you envision that you were meant to bring forth, right? In the spiritual lens, I often say this thing about the SEAL 6, right? So the SEAL 6 is a part of the military unit, and they are sent to do missions that only them themselves can accomplish. Yeah. Right? They Osama bin Laden, different people that they send a SEAL 6 to accomplish a mission that everybody else can. There's only 6 of them.
Yeah, right.
Rather than the 50. And what I say is that God also has his SEAL 6, meaning that it's some of us on this planet that have a divine mission that only us ourselves can accomplish. Right? And he sent you there for that. So you're part of his SEAL 6. So for me, that's what I'm saying is like you got to understand that there's some things in this world that won't be until you do. Right, and know that you are meant to be other people's reference. And some people that won't start doing things until they see you doing it. Right, some people that won't believe it's possible until they see you doing it. Right, some people know Isaiah. Isaiah has a podcast, and I know it's possible because I've seen Isaiah in Lemoyne on a court with me.
Right, yeah,
and he's doing a podcast. That's more tangible than me just seeing a reference through media. Sometimes I need you to be in person. So I think that's important to understand that you are often meant to be the reference, right? And knowing that God got you here with a divine mission.
That's beautiful. And I also want to touch on, because I think people need to understand that big don't mean great and great don't mean big. You know what I mean? Think about the impact that our parents had that nobody really sees. That's the little things that lead to that speech, lead to you being an activist, lead to you having an influence.
What you're saying, the big and small, because even what we define to be big, most times we think in media, right? Most people think role models in media.
Followers.
It be that I said I want to build community, right? And I'm trying to build this ecosystem back in Brooklyn where we looked out for one another, right? Because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if people ain't be like, yo, Jordan, and looked out for me. Always say, Jordan, you be the one to make it out. And because my brother's in the street, certain his relationships, his friends, whenever something would go down or about to go down, they'd tell me to leave the park first. Yo, Jordan, they about to shoot, go upstairs. Yo, Jordan, this about to happen, go upstairs. I was the first person they'd tell to go up. Right, that's what we need today. We need somebody that's looking out for the youth. That's like, I don't want you to follow down the footsteps I did.
Come on, man.
Right, I want you to let's make sure they get in the house first, because I don't want them to even be a part of this. Right, and then saying that to say like the big and small. I remember one time I was going out on a date and I was walking out my building. I live in an apartment building, and the security guard said, "Yo, where you going?" Because they know me. I'm like, I started going on a date. He said, "Come here." He said, "You don't got no cologne on." I'm like, "Nah." So he pulled out the oils that I be wearing. Yeah. And he the first person that showed me that. He gave me some. He's like, "Come on, bro. You can't go out there not smelling good." But where that's at, that's what we need. We need that again. When you looking out for the young men, if he don't got his tie on, you show him how to tie a tie in the moment. I don't see that happening no more, that intergenerational or the cross-generation conversations. We need that. That's the community I'm looking for, the people that's willing to stop the youth. Yo, bro, come here. Let me show you. You got to get your tie right. Yo, make sure you got some cologne when you going out.
Right.
You make sure you always got cash on you. This is what we supposed to be looking out. I don't feel that no more, man. And being here, I can see like the children don't be bad. A lot of us just don't have guidance. You know what I mean? And then I say to parents, my message is to understand that, you know, it's a collective responsibility. If you see that there are youth that are lost, that means that we haven't been effectively taught. Right, and if all the lost youth is around you, you need to know that you are not providing that guidance. Right, you know they say you attract what you are. So if all the lost youth is around you in your neighborhood, that means that you have a role that you need to be fulfilling that you're not. You feel me? So that's what I'm on, is like how we build that back. I want to see that community again. I want to see block parties. I want to see us come together outside of just protests and marches. Our sole purpose of congregating and coming together as a community can't be there for protests. That can't be it. We need to celebrate. Let's have some fun sometimes too. You feel me? So that's what I'm trying to build back in Brooklyn through voice. Is how do we build back this ecosystem? We all understand like how it feels to be loved again.
Man.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to. I'm trying to decide which one I want to go to next, but I'm gonna go to education.
Yeah.
Because I know you speak highly about the importance of education. So talk a little bit about that, and also the importance of like using education as a vehicle, not only in the sense of getting a degree. Or reading books. You know what I mean? It's passing tests.
With this education, I was sometimes I talk to myself when you're in these realms. But
do your thing.
One of the things I was saying was that. There's some of us that come from certain environments that have a gift. And what I mean by the gift is having the ability to insert yourself into different spaces and maintain who you are, right? I believe that in many senses going to these academic spaces, these white spaces, is meant to, something comes at the expense of it. But some of us are able to navigate these spaces and maintain who we are. And what I want to define that to be is like messengers, right? I think like Harriet Tubman, like, she freed some slaves, left, came back.
Right.
Some of us have to get into those systems of education and come back to pull back that knowledge we obtain.
Come on,
right?
Man.
So when I see education as a tool, because you start to understand that the world is not really about, they say who you know, but it's also what you know, and then it's access to resources and information.
Yep.
So we need messages, people that's willing to insert themselves into spaces to get the message and come back and deliver it. Right? Harry ain't free a slave and just ain't come back.
Right.
She freed them, came back. Yo, bro, you sure? Y'all want to go? I'm gonna go. Come back real quick. We need that messenger, right? So when I'm seeing education is also a bridge, and we got to see education differently. We think about college. We got this anti-college movement going on. Right? What's that about? Because yes, do I believe there's things in the system that we need to amend for sure. But let's see college from different lenses. I often say it's a form of exposure first, right? A lot of us come from certain neighborhoods where we haven't been exposed to anything outside of our neighborhood. Right, so when you go to college, just our first time gaining exposure. A lot of people I know first time leaving neighborhoods through prison. I don't want that to be your first time you left. You feel me? I want you. Let's go to college. People never say like how many people in my neighborhood would be alive today if we was able to send them to school. Like I'm seeing it differently. I'm not seeing school just for the economic. Okay, you might be in debt, but you alive. It's a lot of people I've seen that when I'm from, the parents be like, I wish I could just send my child somewhere. Like I just want him to leave from here. That's what I hear about the parents in my neighborhood saying. So when people tell me anti-college, I don't see college as just academics. I see it as a way out. Sometimes all you need to do is shift the young man perspective, and then you probably could bring him back, and he's gonna navigate his environment much different. But I just need to send you somewhere different. I'm not saying go to school, go to class. I need you to see something different real quick.
Come on.
How many people's lives would have been saved? How many of my friends would still be alive? We was able to just send them to school. Like, yo, just go there for 4 years.
Just get out of this.
Just get out of this. I need you to just get out of this to see something different.
Yeah.
Mothers is crying. I wish I could send my son somewhere. They say, Jordan, I just want my son to see something different. I want to be here with these young men on the corner all day because he hasn't seen nothing but this. This is what I'm seeing college as. Just the avenue of exposure. We're not going to get the networking and all that because I just need to get you out of this environment. Let me show you something different. Damn. Now the youth change, his mindset changed. Right? We keep thinking about, our money, we push economics. I love economics, but one of the biggest things is mindset. I got to shift you in turn. I need your mind to change first. Because your environment, they say you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. So once I change how you see yourself and who you are, your environment going to shift automatically because you don't see yourself the same. So you're going to navigate the environment differently. So that's the first thing. Then we go networking. You know what I mean? You meet different people. Also freedom. Right. Some of us never even had the ability to be away from our parents. Feel me? Some of us never had our own bedrooms, own room to sleep in. You can have company at any time. This is some freedom.
Yep.
So, in order to grow, like again, some things you gotta let go of certain stuff. Sometimes you need that space, that solitude. Let me send you over here to go grow into who you want to be, not who your parents is telling you to be, who everybody in your environment trying to condition you to be. Let me send you a place where you can start to define yourself. Sometimes you just need that. You feel me? And if we go anti-college, then we need to build another avenue or a system that will still give us the exposure, still give us the education, the liberation of time, agency over who we are to define who we want to be. Don't just keep deconstructing systems without building a new one. If we're going to deconstruct college, all right, let's go. We don't anti-college. Then what are we going to send the kids to now? We're not leaving them in the hood.
Right.
Don't tell me the trade schools. I love trade schools. Absolutely. 2-year, 3-year apprenticeship programs. Great.
Come on.
But we need some exposure. I need to get you out of Brooklyn. I need to see you somewhere different.
Right.
So that's why I see for college. And then, that's what I'm on. So college is much more than just that, educational pursuits. And then we got to denounce this last thing. They always say, school doesn't teach you to be financially literate or to be a millionaire.
Right.
What I'm going to tell you is that the acquisition of knowledge never equated to anything. It's always how you applied it. I could teach people 1,000 things. I teach financial literacy right now. I give you $10,000 to teach you how to be financially literate. If you don't apply what I taught you, you're not going to be well off.
That's a fact.
So acquiring the knowledge alone, nowhere in the world has ever led to anything.
Yeah, right.
It's how you apply the acquisition of the knowledge or the knowledge you have acquired. So we're going to denounce that too, the idea of, they don't teach me. It nowhere does. Nowhere does knowledge equate to success alone. It's how you apply the knowledge. So we got to teach. We got to teach our youth. And one of the first things, again, it's going to be hard to get anybody to change while keeping them in the same environment to which they adapted the characteristics that they now have in order to survive. So I got to first expose you to something different in order to get you to a point of mindset where you are receptive, understanding like, yo, bro, I need you to change your action. But I can't tell you stop carrying your gun when I got your neighborhood when you need your gun. I can't tell you, yo, bro, don't talk to this like that, don't move like this, while keep you in the same environment which we have adapted these traits in order to survive. I got to first remove you out of place of survival, and then you're going to be more receptive of this other information. But while you keep me here, I'm not changing nothing because I got to live first. I see another day, and then we could talk. Remove me, then we good. But I'm not going to be receptive as long as you keep me in an environment where I need what you tell me not to do in order to survive. So,
bro, that hits, and the exposure thing's everything, because I think your perception and perspective dictates how you move through different things, right? How you perceive different things. And for me, my perspective changed a lot when I was able to get away from home and see something new. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think a big issue with what goes on in some of these, lower income communities is like you said, they only know one way. So they only have one perspective. So people from the outside see them, oh, y'all got to do this. Oh, y'all got to do it. It's not that easy.
They never seen that.
They've never seen that. Yeah, that fly wildin', bro. Yeah, that joint is going crazy, man. Y'all getting this live, too. Bro coming out of nowhere. Anyway, but you feel what I mean? So, and you're never going to have the right perspective in something if you don't perceive it the right way. If that makes sense. A lot of people's perceptions of what they go through or what they're dealing with are always negative, are always scarcity mindset, are always viewed in one little small box. So that's how the perspective is through it. You know, and your perspective drives performance. So if you don't have the right perception of these things, it's not going to allow you to have the right perspective of these things.
Absolutely. And it's exposure. I remember one time I was here with the youth here in Good Life, and they was in the studio and they was rapping. Most of the music now is about sliding, drilling, and killing and all that. And I asked them, I was like, yo, do y'all ever feel like there'll be a time where we not killing each other? And they all just stopped and just looked at me. And I talked to my barber about it, and he was like, yo, you gotta understand that there was a time period where we were slaves, and if you was to ask a slave, yo, do you think there's a time we no longer be slaves? That's not fathomable in their mind because they haven't even seen that. Wow. So they never seen it. They never been in an environment where we wasn't killing each other. They think that's normal. We never been in an environment where officers don't have guns. That was my first time seeing it was in London. The first troops to respond to an incident don't come with their firearms. But if needed, you call a special unit for that. But I never seen officers without firearms.
That's how they do it over there?
In London.
I didn't know
facts.
that.
They don't have their firearm, the first responders. I seen an officer walk in the club, put the handcuffs on somebody, woke him out while he's smoking cigarettes. Yo, bro, you just gotta chill. I seen this. I said, I never seen that before.
Yo, I didn't even know that.
But you won't know that if we only here.
Facts.
You feel me?
Yeah.
But that's if I gotta show you something different, they go, oh, all right, I didn't know that. So when I seen that, so that's what I'm saying is those youth never even seen, and we speaking to them from a lens of what we've been exposed to, and they haven't. But we mad at them for not changing because they haven't seen what we've seen. So show me what you've seen, and then let's have that conversation. It can be a little bit different. I may be more receptive after I see it. I got to see it. So that's what I want to do. My biggest goal outside of nonprofit, those community things, I want to be able to get a trip sponsored with 50 people, and let's take them out the country. I want to get 50 people that don't have passports from my neighborhood all out the country. Before I even build a foundation, that's the first trip I want to do. Because before I even teach you what I'm talking about, you're not going. You may be like, nah, Jay saying something, but you ain't gonna understand it. I gotta show you something different.
Right? Yeah.
So I can say, yo, where we from, bro? That drink ain't even normal, bro. But we normalize it based on the context of our environment. But I gotta show you a different environment for you to even be receptive of what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Whew. And going back to what you said about like just protesting and stuff, it just made me reminded me of a J. Cole quote or J. Cole lyric. He said, the only real revolution happens right inside of you. And that joint stuck with me so deep, man, because like,
that song.
Man, you said what?
I need to know that song.
Change.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, Change. Man, when he said that, it hit me like a brick. And you know what I mean? He talks so much about just like, we're always so focused on the external things, changing this thing, changing that thing, but we don't realize these communities and systems are made up of individuals. And if you want to change them, you need to change the individual, you know, and it takes that individual being able to be accountable and look at themselves in the mirror and say, what do I need to change? How can I be the change that I want to see? You know, instead of always pointing the finger, because I think, and I want you to speak on this too, because I don't want to throw this term out lightly, but the idea of being a victim, victim mentality, victim of your environment, like, I do think it's a balance, because if you've only seen that growing up, that's not really being a victim. Like, you know what I mean? That's just all you know. No, but on the other end of it, it's like, in order to change it, in order to like get out of that, you really do have to like shift your mindset and understand that I can't allow my environment and what I've seen and what I've been exposed to dictate what I do with my life. So
now you're saying some good stuff. I'm trying to, you know, break it down to me and start to make it
take your time,
understand
bro.
other people. But like, so I do this event every year. I call it community activation, right? And what I say is that just like college, every neighborhood too has an alumni association. The only difference is that as neighborhoods, we have failed to find ways to actively engage and give a call to our alumni, like to charge them with responsibility. And I'm saying that to say is like that level of consciousness and awareness of like, if this is all they've been exposed to and they acting in accordance to that, is they a victim? No, right? And I do believe those that have made it out should come back.
Yes.
So that we can say, he was here with me before. I've seen him change and he's back.
Right.
I could see that as a reference, like, oh, it's possible to be different and come from here. Because we often say you're a product of an environment.
Yep.
And what I want people to know is that to be a product of an environment don't mean that you're destined to only become, you know, two things, which is like jail or dead.
Right.
Right. To be a product of environment, I'm a product of Brooklyn, but to be a product of environment don't mean that you're destined to only become one thing. Right. That's not monolith. But most times you think a product of environment means like it's a negative connotation. But it's product of environments that have, like outliers that have not fit what the system has built to be. So that's the first, right? In regards to these systems and exposure. And then when I was in class, I learned this thing called like the difference between a cycle and a system, right? I think it's important for us all to know that a cycle is something that you play a role in fulfilling. Like you keep it, the maintenance of the cycle is controlled by you. That's the cycle. But then we think about systems is something outside of your control that plays a role on your experiences, right? So what you were saying is like, we need people to come to acknowledge what cycles they are part of.
Yes.
Like, what are the cycles that you're doing? How you talking to a woman? What you daily doing? That's cycles, those things that you help to maintain. Now, are there systems that play a role in the conditions that have built our cycles? Absolutely.
Come on.
But you sagging your pants, that's a part of the cycle. I need you to fix. You could fix that.
Yeah,
you can wake up in the morning, get up and and do some push-ups. Let's read. That's a cycle.
Yeah, that's real.
Now, systems is something that we have to address as a collective. That's something outside of your control. But what we do need you to be privy to is what cycles are you helping to maintain, and then what systems play a role in those cycles is a different conversation. And I think James Baldwin said it best. He said, if the world does it to you long enough and effectively enough, you begin to do it to yourself, right? So it's saying if the world continues to make you feel less than, to make you feel inferior, you begin then to self-fulfill that. You start to live in that prophecy of, oh, I'm less than, I am inferior.
Oh my.
Right? But that's the system. That if the world does it to you long enough and effectively enough, you begin to do it to yourself, how the system plays a role in the cycles that we perpetuate. But we got to first address our cycles. So when I come back and I talk, I'm trying to get just to change our cycles. I need us to understand, if you got your gun, bro, we got to have some rules. We not shooting in daylight, we in front of our elders, let's get some codes and codes of conduct within this community, how it looks, right? I would love for us to one day become people that can self-patrol. But first it comes with us building codes to conduct our cycles. And then we can address system. But it starts with like our cycles first.
Man, that's hitting. And that kind of segues into, I haven't really heard you touch much on this topic, but I want to hear your perspective on the mental health, especially amongst, the black community, but in general, man. Like, first speak on if you ever experienced certain times where, maybe you were struggling mentally and how you overcame it. And then just talk about what you see and how you think that could be something that we could kind of, shift a little bit.
I would say this mental health, a big part is like mindset. What you listen to. Who you're around, what conversations you indulge in, all play a role in your mental fitness is what I try to word it as. Like, how you stay mentally fit. And you have to find out what works for you. We was talking about it earlier, meditating. What I'm trying to find, there's things that work for people, right? For others that may not work for you. So you have to sometimes sit there and determine what is it that works for you. Like, what does it look like for me to decompress after I have a long day? What works for me?
Come on.
Where I had to find that. And I'm working on that too. So I feel like this mental health and mental fitness something that is a constant thing. Because like you said, different seasons, different stages of life require different you to show up.
Yep.
And how you respond. If you've never been in that situation before, you don't know how to respond to it until you're in it.
You're right.
And when you in it, you have to then understand, mate, there's times you get to a certain season where nothing that happened in your prior season or that worked for you in seasons prior will work for you now. And you have to come to what my life coach says, update your system, right? She said there's times where you have to update your whole system. It's computers.
Right.
Tesla is a computer. There's times you have to update the whole computer.
Right.
Where nothing will help this car function that once happened.
Right.
It now needs a whole new system. And
right.
I think that's where I'm at. It's constant. Like, I can tell you systems that work prior. I did affirmations. I used to have a routine. But then as I transition to this season, when I'm in my mental, because the mind is strong. Right. And I believe that the thing that we face the most, I believe as people, definitely black people, we have been able to withstand the physical. That's not really what helps us. But the mental, slavery was first mental. They had to try to break you down mentally because they used to kidnap kings, queens, children of these royal families. And you see like in 12 years of slavery, it's like they was trying to get him to feel less than. But mentally he wasn't breaking. Wow. Right? They couldn't. Slavery first happened was here. So now we out of the shackles. A lot of people say we still mentally here because we don't understand how do we build for ourselves. So for me, like with this mindset is very important. And I put myself in the mindset where I can't retreat. That's the first one. It's like I can't go back.
Absolutely.
The second one is like I'm gonna have to pray. And the other things is like what my life coach says, you have to give yourself grace to grow into a version of yourself that you've never been before. And I think that's the biggest one when it comes to this mental health. Is like understand like, yo, Jay, you might not have the answer, bro. And some things gonna take time.
Come on.
And I have to allow myself the grace to know that I never been the person I'm trying to evolve into. You feel me? I never been a man with a girlfriend before. You feel me? Like that I actually committed to.
Come on.
Right? And it's like I never been in this situation. There's times where you get in a season you've never been in. You're in a new chapter of your life. Now you have to find yourself some grace to grow, right? And I think that's what helps me with this mental health. And then music. Raw Wave is one of my favorite artists.
Shout out to Raw Wave.
And I believe that even though we say that seeking confirmation in the world, but he got a song that should be coming out, and he's talking about he speaks about like the pains that come with growth. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And he just spoke about it. He's like, certain things don't excite me no more. Certain things ain't like me no more. Right? And I believe like music is very instrumental in our growth, our development, how we overcome certain obstacles. That's why I'm big on like what's the message that these artists are pushing. Because it plays a big role on how we overcome obstacles. Music is supposed to be for the spirit. It is a spiritual thing. You got to sit in the studio. You are trying to communicate what you feel into words so other people have a spiritual response to it. Right? So it's like
that's deep.
That's big. So music has helped me in many ways. And this time with certain songs no longer are relatable. You outgrow music. So you outgrow. Like I'm saying, we enter different seasons. Give yourself the grace to grow. You pray. Speak with some friends, but then also some solitude. Sometimes you got to sit down and just that meditation you spoke about. Sometimes you got to sit down and say, what does it look like for me to get here? How do I overcome this one? You try a few things, trial and error, and you figure out what worked for you in that season, but it takes time.
Absolutely it do. Yeah. And I think also as you grow and evolve, you also have to be willing to let go of certain things, right? We've talked about that, but like that, I think a big issue or area I saw my mental health really come up is just the lack of knowing oneself. Like a lot of people don't know themselves. So now when all these external things that you've been placing your value or your validation in kind of go away and you're left with you don't know that person. Right. That's where depression comes from. That's where feelings of like hopelessness comes from. Like what the hell? Now I'm gonna go. I gotta find something else to to put my identity in because I don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's another thing that's really tough in the black community is, like you said, the only way a lot of these kids think is out is either I got to be an athlete, go to the league, rapper, or entertainer.
Right.
Now, when you have none of those things, where's your identity?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
I feel lost.
Right. And that's big, like identity formation, giving yourself time.
Yeah.
I was saying, like, after a lot of us went to school, we in college, but after you graduate, you didn't have agency over your time. You no longer having someone else dictate where you got to be at a certain time at this time for this time. And you have to then give yourself time to form your identity. Right? And I think, I thought about this. People say the most important thing in the world is time, right? And I believe that to an extent. But I also think it's people want to control your time because they're not going to control what you think. And I think we only want control of our time to give us agency of thought. Yeah. Right? And a lot of us don't have that ability to think. We really don't. A lot of us got to wake up and have 3-4 jobs to provide for ourselves, but also for our families and our loved ones. So a lot of things is taking agency over our ability of thought and to think. So it's like, I think that's the biggest one. When you're saying this identity, a lot of things we speak about now do take some time of solitude.
1,000%.
And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people got to go back and forth, can't afford to take a break.
Yeah.
So that's when we start seeing them, oh, man, he's breaking down, he's crying, he want to hurt people because he don't got that time to really formulate his identity. You feel me? Because, and then we live in a capitalist society. We got to make money. We got to go to work. You don't have no option. You got to pay that bill. You need to get that rent done. But a lot of things is obstructing us from having time to deal with ourselves. So I think that's a big part of it, is like understanding the importance of time, leveraging boredom and silence when you do have it, and using that to something. Yeah.
Yeah, bro, and then being able to, like you said, tap back into the community and teach them these things.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's the hardest part, learning how to teach what you know. They say you don't really know what you're good at until you learn how to teach it. You feel me? Like you're not good at something until you really learn how to teach it. You're not good until you learn how to teach it. That's good. Yeah, that's you're
real.
Not really good. So
that's
you say, hey, you great at the podcast. Like, now, how can you teach somebody how to do it?
Right.
Formulate a script.
Right.
Tap into knowing that some questions is going to be just guided through the spirit. You feel me? So things like that real. Is understanding. So you don't know you good at something until you really learn how to teach it, and that's big.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, that I was thinking about public speaking for a second because it's way different. It's way different than sitting here and speaking to a camera, man. It's a whole different ball game, bro. That's something I've picked up from you a lot. If you could think about what do you think your current mission or purpose is right now, where you're at in life, and what are some things that you hold dear to you?
I believe God is shifting me. How I use my voice inside of school was to make us feel as if we belong wherever we was at, right? If it was college, I want everybody to feel like you belong here first. I would tell them it's not a privilege to be a part of Syracuse. It's a privilege of Syracuse to have you a part of it, right? And that's why I would tell them, is how do I make people belong? I wanted to build community. How it looks now outside of the institution that I'm in this world is the first one is stopping violence amongst each other, right? So I've been finding myself, inserting myself in spaces where I'm trying to get us to come back together. I use this back to school drive I have really just to organize my community for me to deliver a message. It's amazing. I give out book bags, have basketball and food, but the real mean is to organize. And I'm thinking now I want to do a back to school drive in different neighborhoods that don't get along so I can speak.
That's real, man.
And it's some form of community organizing through my voice. And it's yo, how y'all doing? I know we don't get along with the people on this side, but some way we got to find a way to build a community for our children.
Come on.
Right? So even if we got beef with each other, how do we make sure what we've been through, what we've done don't impact our child so they could live a life that we never had? So that's how I want to use my voice now. It's how do I organize my people authentically? You don't got to necessarily be in politics because we have a certain association with politicians. So me, it's that's how I want to use my voice, and that's one of my biggest goals. And then the other one's learning how to teach. You here at this boot camp. It's been hard teaching these youth. But that's the mission.
We've been doing it, though.
That's the mission. We did it, right? Yeah. It caused me each day to deal with discomfort and to make it happen because I had to show up. Right? I could not come.
Come on.
So it was no retreat. I had to get it done. And I think that's my goal, is learning how to pass this message down to those that's young, because what we are noticing is that when we say youth now that's in the streets, they actually 15 and under.
For real.
I think it was easier for me to get a message across between 16, 17, 18. You could really understand what I'm saying. But when you 15 and under, you still really ain't really see much. We got kids that we seen 13, 15 with ankle monitors.
Crazy,
you feel me?
bro.
And it's I have to learn how to connect with them because those are the ones we need to speak to. And that's and it's a movie, right? Because I am a journalist, so I like to reference movies called "A Beast of No Nation." It got Idris Elba in it, right? And what they was showing was how children are being recruited in Africa and like different third world countries be a part of this warfare. And what I'm seeing now is the same thing when it comes to our gangs and how there's a recruitment of our youth to participate in certain actions that we supposed to be leading them not into. You know what I mean? But it's important for us to find ways to reaffirm our children. I'm gonna end this part with there's an African proverb that says, "A child does not feel reaffirmed by his village will burn it down to feel his warmth." Right? And we seen that in Black Panther with Killmonger. He was like, "Y'all got vibranium and y'all not helping the hood. I want to burn y'all flowers. I want to destroy everything, and I want to redisseminate this vibranium to the hood." Wow. He didn't feel reaffirmed, but I will burn down his village to feel his warmth. Right? And that's what we seen in our society. It's like, how do we get these youth to feel love? Because I don't want you to feel love through the warmth of the fire. I need you to feel like we here for you. So it's been a challenge, but challenge me if it comes with building community. I'm up for that one.
I love that. Come on, man. I love that. I got one more, and then we get to the final part. Just some like, who are some like people that really influenced you outside of your immediate family? Like, you know, whether it was, you know, dead or alive too, just people that really, you know, left their mark.
I mean, the first one, I don't know why many people don't catch it. Whenever I say a speech, I always end with the marathon continues. Right, so Nipsey Hussle was definitely one of my first was one of my inspirations. I can say first, but that was one because you know, even though he was in a gang, he was in the streets, he had some principles. You feel me? And as a man, I don't really like people just because they music. I like you for who you are as an individual. You feel me? So that was one of my references. Muhammad Ali, he refused to go to Vietnam to participate in the war, and he stood on principle. I believe there was a time period where our athletes, not entertainers, was once activists as well, or at least they had close relationships to one. But we stood for much more than just our gifts with our hands and our feet. You know what I mean? Like, we stood for something in a cause. So that's us two. Malcolm X for sure. I read upon him and I'm reading more. He had discipline. For me, he had structure, and he spoke. Whenever he spoke, he would speak truth, whether it was radical or not. He was going to tell you how he felt. Yeah. I know I do Martin Luther King, but like Angela Davis. Fred Hampton. I like to also look at some women. So Fannie Lou Hamer is somebody that I looked at.
Who's that?
So Fannie Lou Hamer, right? She was from the South. I want to say Mississippi, and she was trying to ways to organize her community. And there was a time where she was trying to get everybody to come to vote. She did a bus trip, and they stopped the bus and they took her out off the bus. They arrested her, and these guards beat her up badly. And one time she got to speak at this convention. I forgot the exact name of it. And when she spoke, this is how powerful her speech was, that the president at the time, so you know they control media, right? And they knew she was about to speak. And at the same time she spoke, they switched the cameras. All national TVs went straight to the president giving an address. But he had nothing really to say. But it was just for us not to hear what she was about to say. Because she's about to expose parts of the system. But people don't know about things like that. And I say, like, you got to know, the conversation should be around not what we are being shown, but what is it not being shown. Because a lot of things that have been taken off of TV. There's a lot of things that's been banned off TV. A lot of shows that's not allowed to be circulating. A lot of books you can't get access to on the internet. Things like this we not thinking. We thinking we got this what they say. This generation has so much access. We don't think about the technological divide, and the fact that there's certain books that we never be able to access on the internet. Things that have been removed, movies that have not been shown in theaters and cannot be shown in theaters, people that are not allowed to speak at venues and are banned from speaking at certain venues. So Louis Farrakhan is another reference of mine I looked at. Kwame Ture, they first call him Stoli Carmichael. That's one. I'm reading more about more of my Pan-African leaders. Patrick Lumumba, he wanted to be I don't know exactly, I want to say the president of the Congo or whoever leads that. And I learned more about him. And just a few more people. Alain Locke. Alain Locke was a philosopher. He spoke about this idea, and I thought it was interesting. He said, like, how would we define blackness when it's not a reaction to whiteness? Like, how would you define that, right? And I thought that was interesting because, like, how do you define what it means to be black outside of a condition of oppression, right? And it's like, oh shoot, that was my first time I heard somebody say it, and I always thought that because I went to London. Yeah, it was a lot of second generation or first generation people born in London, right? So a lot of them, I don't know, I felt like it was very integrated. I seen all the white people dance with black people. I asked them, I was like, yo, where the black people party at? It's like, what? We everywhere, whatever. Because in the hood in Brooklyn, there's places where we at. And so, and when I was there, that was my first time I thought about it. Because I just ain't feel that same form of oppression I felt in the States. And I was like, how would I define what it means to be black if I wasn't oppressed? You know? So wow, man. Those are a few people that I named there. But it's various other people that I'm learning more. I'm trying to read more about Toni Morrison. and a lot of these black women leaders that I've seen. But Angela Davis definitely one of them. Shahada Shakur is one of them I read about. I'm learning more by the day, but it's a constant, step of learning.
Yeah, man, that's it. I really, I'm gonna get you back on again because we could talk for hours.
For sure.
I could already see. There's so many different topics I want to touch about. So we're gonna finish with the final 3 questions. It's just like quick.
Okay.
Do your thing. The first is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever heard, received, or given? I know that's tough.
Piece of advice I've heard, seen, or given. Damn, it's so many pieces.
It's tough. One of the best. There we go.
Yeah, let me go one of the best. I'm gonna use this, the one that's on my mind right now. It's by a brother of Alpha named Lamel Island. Right? He said, because I asked him a question about, I need a team, feeling hard, think people don't see the vision, things like this. And he said, Jordan, I want you to think about all the things that you want to achieve that you can't achieve alone, because that's gonna force you to build a team. Right? And he said, if the things you aspire to accomplish are only the things you can do alone, you're not seeking to grow, but only to exercise your ego. Right? And when he told me that, I was like, damn, I thought that was deep. So, put yourself in positions where you need to build a team, because if the only things you aspire to become is things that you can do alone, you're not really seeking to grow.
You hitting,
just exercise your egos.
Boy.
So
because a true vision, especially from God, will always be bigger than you.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
So that
was the big one.
Yeah.
For me. That was the big one.
Okay, flip it. What's the worst advice you ever?
The worst
heard
advice?
Yeah.
Don't change. When people tell you don't change. And I put this in a speech before. I said a butterfly would never applaud a caterpillar for never evolving. Right? You was meant to go through a cocoon, through the metamorphosis, and become a butterfly.
Come on.
So I never applaud you for not getting your wings. And I think a lot of times we got to redefine what it looks like to grow. To grow to mean you got to leave your community. I don't know why we attach success to leaving our community, because the goal is to build a neighborhood where you don't feel like you have to leave in the first place. That's something an older mentor of mine, Leroy, told me. But I think that's a big one. Is people always tell you don't change. They always stay the same. Nah, you supposed to evolve. That's the goal. We just got to redefine what it looks like to grow, and what that looks like. And growth don't necessarily mean leaving your community. It means to expand in thought and come back to bring back that message. So when people tell you don't change, I think that's the biggest one. A lot of your men is like, yo, don't change, bro. You changing. Yeah. Oh, I feel like you different.
Like change is bad.
The goal, change ain't bad.
Yeah.
And a butterfly would never applaud a caterpillar for never ever getting his wings. That don't make sense.
I love that. Yeah, that's real. And then if you could create one law that the whole entire world had to follow, had to, what would it be?
You said simple questions. These is big questions.
It's the last one. It's the last one.
If you could create a law that everybody had to follow.
Obviously, this is hypothetical.
Oh, word. I think we should measure the stability of a nation based on the conditions of its children. I think that's big, right? So I think right now, of course, because I'm thinking internationally. In Kenya, the youth ever voted against the financial bill. In Palestine, what's going on there? It's killing the 40,000 plus youth. We seen here in America, in Haiti, in Niger, various places where the Congo, for sure, when it comes to the mining of cobalt, it's impacting a lot of children and the youth. And I think that if we understood that the measurement of a nation's stability is based upon the conditions of its children and its youth, we understand that all nations right now is unstable. So
wow, man.
I think that's what I do.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
That's it.
Yeah, we and then one more to get on a good note. If you got one message to the whole world, what would it be?
The message to the whole world. Oh, this is a good one. I'm willing to say that a lot of times we focus so much on changing the world, and often that change of the world can just start by changing your community. Right? So I think we can start there, understanding how do we change those that surround us. And that's a way of having change on the world, because you could change 2-3 lives in your neighborhood, and they could go off to change different lives in the world. So I think we got to reassess what it looks like to have a platform. And I'll say a big part of changing the world is first changing your community.
That's real, man. Yeah. Well, my brother, I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you. I think this is a great episode. There's a lot of things that would tap into people that
absolutely, man. So seriously,
I appreciate you bringing me up here. It's just more to come.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just a grain of salt.
Yeah, you already know, man. Make sure you take everything you heard today with a grain of salt. Go be yourself, man. But like I said, I'm appreciative of you, and let people know where they can find you one last time and do your thing.
Yeah, so on Instagram and TikTok, you can catch me at Jordanpierree. It is 2 E, so it's JordanPierre. EE, because you know people like to steal names on Instagram, so I had to add another E to try to still get that that username. But you can find me on those and on LinkedIn as Jordanpierree. So you connect me in any of those.
And all that's there too.
Definitely. And then you got Voice. So this is Voice. The Feelings of Heart is my clothing brand. I want to encourage us all to utilize our platforms to amplify the voice of the unheard. And we're gonna turn to a foundation within the coming months. And you catch me on any of those platforms.
Facts.
Reach out to me and I'll keep you updated on everything else that we got coming.
Yeah, definitely pay attention because he gonna be worldwide. So
We got it.
Appreciate you, bro.